Yeah, going to be another incredible environment on Saturday. Our students have been camping out since Monday, so I know they're obviously fired up. Um, Important matchup for us, as well as them. Both sitting at 5-4 right now in the SEC, so it could be a separator game. Two teams that have really been battle tested. You know, Alabama and Auburn have played the number one and number two hardest strength of schedules 2 consecutive years, and I think we'll finish out that way as well. So, just kind of speaks to where both programs have come, and the how aggressive that both programs have been in their scheduling. So, they're coming off a big win on last night. Put up 100 on Texas A&M. So, it's a team that really scores the ball, really pushes the tempo, can really shoot it. They're playing pretty well right now. Lost to obviously a really good Florida team on Sunday, but to beat the first place team in our league last night was big. Got a lot of guards that can really score it, can really shoot it. I think they figured out their 8-man rotation that they're going to play probably the rest of the year, and they're finally all healthy. So, going to be another unbelievable opportunity for our group to try and get a win against another quad one opponent. So looking forward to it, and I know our guys are excited about it. Todd's the only guy that's really played in this rivalry, so all those guys have been looking forward to this because they've watched this. This rivalry's turned into something significant, and they've watched it on TV for a couple years now. So going to be a great environment. Obviously got a lot of respect for the job that Nate and his group have done, and we're just looking forward to Saturday. So take any questions.
Stephen, how do you approach this week in terms of being able to self-scout and then also trying to obviously do extra prep for Alabama? How do you sort of balance how much do you prep extra for what you got coming up, and how much can you look back at what you've done and try to self-scout?
Yeah, we've kept our process pretty standard, and business as usual. We with the bye week, we tried to work on us a little bit on Monday. Did a little bit of what they do on Tuesday, but really just more about getting healthy. And we had a couple guys that were really banged up going into this week, so the couple days off came at a really good time. Keyshawn Hall had 3 stitches in his shooting finger, and we didn't really report that. But for Keyshawn Hall to go out there and play against Tennessee, could have easily have said, "No, my shooting hand. I'm not gonna run the risk of putting up bad numbers or bad stats," but he went out there and gutted it out with 3 stitches in his finger, his index finger on his shooting hand. Murph's a little banged up right now, but he'll be back at practice today. KO takes a pretty nasty knee to the back of his head, and so bye week came at a great time for us because we need to get back and get going. But obviously gave him off yesterday, and we'll have 2 really good days of prep heading into the game this weekend.
Sure. Stephen, they're averaging like 40-plus three-point attempts over the last few games. What's the challenge of facing a team like that and trying to defend somebody that will shoot a 3 on every possession if you allow?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where every time a shot goes up, you think it's going in because they have such great shooters. So yeah, it's obviously a challenge because in transition, there's certain lineups out there where all 5 guys can really shoot it, and you got to do a great job of locating those guys. And they don't run sets; they play out of rules, and it's just a lot of free flowing offense. And so you got to be in a stance for 40 minutes because the second you stand up or the second you give bad help, they're going to take full advantage of it, and then they're throwing it to a guy that is a 35 to 43% 3-point shooter. So. It's going to require multiple efforts and for 40 minutes, and just you can't ever stop in this game because the second you do, they take advantage of it.
Stephen, the week off, was that an opportunity for any of the guys that are not in the 7-man rotation, so to speak, to step up and maybe earn a spot or more playing time?
Well, we have an 8-man rotation.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I like the rotation that we've had. Since we inserted Blake into the lineup, we're 5-2 and had some really good wins. So we're gonna continue to roll with those guys. May shuffle a few things around, but the guys that we've had in there have proven to give us the best opportunity to go in there and get wins. And I've just told those other guys you got to stay right and you got to stay ready because at a moment's notice, your opportunity, your number could get called, and you just got to be ready when that moment does happen.
Obviously, for a few different reasons, you guys have been familiar with Aiden and LeBaron. What have you seen from them, I guess, this season in terms of their development and the type of players they are, and what kind of challenges, I guess, do they respectively pose to y'all's backcourt on defense?
Yeah, I mean, LeBaron is just, he's going to be a first-round draft pick and, shoots great percentages from all over the floor. He's probably their most willing passer. Just does a lot of really good things for him offensively. Does a good job of getting to the foul line and making his free throws. He's really handsy defensively, makes plays. So just really multi-dimensional. He's got good size, so he can shoot over the top of you, and can really make shots with his feet set or off the bounce. And Aiden is just I knew this progression was going to happen for Aiden because I've always known how good Aiden was. He had a rough freshman year, and he's one of the. You guys saw him at practice, like one of the most gifted, talented shooters you've ever seen. And Nate's, said the same thing. And I knew that, whether he was here or there, he was going to have the same amount of success because he was too good of a player. He worked too hard for it not to happen. So, played great for him last night. Hit some huge shots late in that game, from two, to ultimately help them win that game. So, just continue to get better, and both of them, do a lot of really good things offensively. So all five guys on the floor are going to have to know what those guys do because, you can't be worried about matchups in this game. You got to make sure that you get bodies on bodies. So all of our guys got to know what those two guys specifically do because the ball's going to be in their hands most of the game. So we got to do a great job of trying to limit what they do.
Stephen, how much do you feel like this rivalry's grown since you first got here, and do you feel like it's become the premier rivalry in the SEC?
Yeah, the rivalries, it's always been a big deal just because, both schools and what the Iron Bowl was with football, right? But as both these programs have had so much success, you look at, from 2018 until last year, there's been 9 SEC championships between the two programs, and that in itself has elevated this rivalry to the best one in our conference in that time. The first 1 versus 2 last year at their place, no other rivalry can really say that in our league. So it's definitely been elevated to a level that I don't think any of you in this room thought it would ever get to. And, I know Nate's done a phenomenal job in his time, but now it's, my job to, try and keep it in that area because I know our fans obviously, respect it, appreciate it, and it's been a big reason. Our players look forward to it as well. So, it's definitely grown into probably the best rivalry in this league right now.
Amari Allen's been banged up a couple times throughout the season, but when he is healthy and on the court, what challenges does he present?
He's a Swiss Army knife. He just does a little bit of everything for him. Can really shoot it. He can drive it both directions. He can drive it right or left. Runs the offensive glass, makes multiple effort plays. He can defend. He's just a guy that just, I think Coach compared him to Herb Jones in a regard. So that's the ultimate compliment right there. So does a lot of great things for him, and as a freshman, just shows tremendous maturity. And he's physical, plays hard, makes good decisions. So really, really good piece for them, and a player that's really impressed us.
You and Tahad have been a part of this rivalry game multiple times before. What have you both told the other guys on the team about this matchup in particular?
We haven't really talked about it yet because I haven't visited with the team yet. But today, I'm going to tell our guys this game matters, to our fans, and we always talk about wanting to do things for our fans. And if you want to make our fans happy, beat Alabama, so it has some real significance. But our guys all know that this is a big game, but we can't approach it like it's any different from games that we played last week. But yeah, I mean they all recognize the significance of it. They've seen it on TV, so our guys are just obviously excited for another record sellout and against another quality opponent.
Take a few more.
From what you've seen on film, what do you think Charles Bediako has brought to them since he's been back, and I guess how are you guys preparing for the uncertainty of whether or not he'll be able to play Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely brings, a dimension defensively that, they needed. And, he does a great job of blocking shots, and not just blocking shots, but altering shots. And, offensively, he's a really good roll guy around the rim, does a good job getting offensive rebounds. And, for us, we're just preparing, as if he's going to play. And, I've probably spent too much time like thinking about this, but like, man, I feel for the kid in a way, because like, what happens tomorrow if like he gets denied? What does he do? And like that's something, and I probably shouldn't put any like thought towards it, but like I hope the decision makers in that room have like thought through that, because are we setting this kid up for failure by bringing him back? And I'm almost rooting for him to be able to play tomorrow on Saturday, because I don't want him to be in a situation where he's got to make some real difficult decisions if for some reason, this new judge says, no, you're not allowed to play. So maybe Auburn fans are going to be upset with me for saying that, but I don't know, man. I feel for him a little bit, because I think he's in a unique situation. He's in a difficult situation. So, but for us, we've just been preparing as if he's going to play, because that's what they've had the last 4 games. So we got to prepare as if he's going to be out there.
You mentioned after the Tennessee game there were some things that kind of felt out of character for y'all, and the film was going to be difficult to watch. When y'all got back together as a team, what were some of those things, and I guess what do you sort of attribute some of those factors being in a game like that?
Right. Well, first 15 minutes we got pushed around, which we hadn't really had happen to us in a while. We've done a good job of, being the more physical team, and I thought Tennessee in the first 15 really set the tone and kind of pushed us around, and ended up getting up by 13. We've done a great job. I think we're 4th in the country at getting to the free throw line, and we only got to the foul line 20 times, and they got to the foul line 31. I thought we let a couple drives that we had that went uncalled affect us being aggressive going to the rim, and you can't let that happen against a really physical team. Tennessee did a really good job of sending bodies at us as we drove it. And, as the game went on, as opposed to playing off 2 feet and attacking the rim, we kept kicking the ball out, and we got good looks. And I really don't have a problem with, a lot of the looks we got in the second half. But at some point, we got to start making those if we're going to take them, And we had the one in transition where we were down 4, and Key kicks out to Todd, and instead, I would love for Key just to go drive that to the rim and just force them to foul him like he's done all year. So I mean, we settled a little bit too much offensively. I thought defensively we were better than what I gave us credit for in the moment. That's a really physical team, and without Akpara, they got to play their bigger guys, which I think was, a little bit of a problem for us. And, Carey did a phenomenal job, and Brown did a great job, and Strayo was in foul trouble, but, I thought they did a really good job. And we had some really silly fouls, which led, Ament to really get to the foul line and take full advantage. So I think some uncharacteristic shots, from 3 that we should have taken to the basket, and then some silly fouls that put them ultimate at the foul line, and they did a great job of converting at the free throw line.
Last one right here.
Going off of that, you were saying don't settle for 3 so much. Do you have to kind of really hammer that home when you play a team like Alabama, who's going to take a lot of threes, and you don't want your own offense to kind of get lost in that? Yeah,
we can't get into a transition contest, and we can't get into a 3-point contest with Alabama, because that's what they do really well, and what we do really well is attack the rim. So we got to run opportunistically when we have advantage, but when we don't have advantage, we got to run offense. We got to make them cover, because that's just that's playing in the 75 to 80 possessions that's not a strength of ours. So we got to make smart decisions offensively on when to attack and when not to attack, and we got to attack the rim, because that's what we've been good at all year. And then when the defense collapses down and gives us open opportunities from 3, we got to do a better job of stepping up and making those shots as the game goes on.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.